All right, activity 2, we're going to break into 2 pages, and this is in Amplify, so we're going to work on page 1 first. Remember, the investigation question is, what happens to atoms during a chemical reaction? Okay, we've spent a lot of time investigating what happens to the atoms of a substance when it burns. Through these investigations, we've learned that during a chemical reaction, atoms are not destroyed. Instead, they rearrange to form other substances. Although we sometimes cannot see other substances, we know that the atoms are there. Today, we're going to investigate the chemical reaction that Jesse observed when the chlorine atoms seemed to have changed into sulfur atoms. And the things that you're going to want to think about on the first page are things like, was the container really empty before Jesse added the chlorine? Okay, how can you tell? You also want to think about, could the chlorine have changed into sulfur, and why or why not? And also, could the chlorine have changed into hydrogen chloride? And why or why not that could happen? To help you do this, we're going to use the model token tool again. I'm going to open up the agenda. What I'd like you to do is go to the token modeling tool that I linked in the agenda right here. And you're going to open this up. You're going to be able to take sulfur, which is a little bit of a different color than it is in the pictures in your activity. I think they're yellow. This looks more of an orange. You're going to use hydrogen, and you're going to use chlorine to build the product that we know occurred after the chemical reaction. And you're going to kind of work backwards to see if the reactants could have been chlorine changing into sulfur. So why don't you work on the first page in activity 2. I'd like you to then just pause the video while you go do the first page in activity 2 and come back in just a moment, and we'll go on to page 2. So pause right now, please. Go work on page 1 and then come back and view the rest of the video. And I'm going to go over page 2 in just a moment. Okay, welcome back. So in the second page, okay, we know in the chapter 2 key concept, during a chemical reaction, atoms do not change from one type to another. We know that atoms don't change type. As a result, we can be certain that the chlorine atoms could not have changed into sulfur or hydrogen atoms. Therefore, either the sulfur and the hydrogen atoms spontaneously appeared, or the container was not empty when Jesse added the chlorine. The key concept posted at the end of the last lesson stated, during a chemical reaction, all of the atoms that make up the reactants, that's the beginning substances, rearrange to form the products, which are the ending substances in a chemical reaction. Based on this key concept, we can be certain that these atoms must have come from another reactant. The chlorine atoms could not have rearranged to form these products on their own. So what I'd like you to do is go back into the token modeling tool, and in the second page, your goal is to try to identify what the other reactant was. What was that? It had to be colorless gas that was inside that bottle that Jesse thought was empty. These are your options. It could be iron sulfide, hydrogen, sodium sulfide, hydrogen sulfide, sulfur dioxide, or sulfuric acid. The properties will give you a little bit of a clue because we know that we couldn't see anything that was in there. But I think the repeating group of atoms are going to be more useful. So you have to use the model token tool, the digital token tool that you used in the first activity, to kind of work backwards and figure out what must have been the other reactant in this chemical reaction to have sulfur and hydrogen chloride be the products of this chemical reaction. If you need help, make sure that you click the video on the agenda. I'm going to go through the entire activity with you if you're having problems. Good luck.